you've done.
Look, you probably have a security plus, maybe even a security clearance, and nobody taught you how to write poems, or how to test a security control, or submit an ATO package. I'm Chris Okpala. A few years ago, I was in your shoes, qualified on paper, but completely lost when it came to RMF. I had a degree, I had the certs, I had the drive, and when somebody said how to test the AC2 control or validate stick bindings, I had no clue what that actually looked like. Fast forward 5 years, I worked across DoD and federal agencies, led control assessments, written ATO package, and passed audits. That's why I built RMF Academy, to teach you the real-world execution they don't cover in certification books. Inside, I'll show you how to write a poem and don't get badged back, test and validate security controls, translate tech jargon, navigate NIST 853 and RMF with confidence. If you're in IT supporting the government systems or stuck on the edge of cybersecurity, this is your way. The people who go through my training don't just get hired, they hit the ground running because they practice the work before day one. Go to rmfacademy.io and let's get to work. Welcome everybody to another edition of a Tech Woke podcast. I am your host, Chris, a cybersecurity specialist inside the GovTech space. And in today's podcast, we have a great guest. We always talk about project management. We hear about PMP, but sometimes we don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I just see a lot of people doing it in this opportunity, and a lot of people want to know what it is and how to get into it. So without further ado, we're bringing in Diamond Tarwoe. She's been working in the project management space for a very long time. She's been working with Fortune 500 companies. And without further ado, Diamond, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing. So I'm glad that you came here on this Saturday afternoon. You could have been doing anything. You just had you have a newborn. Yeah, you're married and you're doing things. And I know just to give me a little bit of your time. This is amazing. So
Of course. Thank you for having me.
no problem. So Diamond, how we've been introduced, my girl, and I they're getting to know y'all. And I know you've been working in the tech space for how long? Like 5-10 years?
Last time I looked at my resume, I thought I was going to tell you 5-10 years, but it's actually over 10 years.
Oh, 10 years.
About 12. Yeah.
So it takes 10 years to become a master. So you've been in this space, you dealt with it, and when we were getting in the tech space, it was nothing that was out there to we had to kind of figure it out.
Of course. And I remember like just being in the work field and hearing a little bit about PMs and IT, et cetera, and thinking to myself, like, wow, I wish I had someone who would sit down with me and tell me, like, hey, there's other avenues outside of just obtaining a college degree where your career can soar and you can make an income that's like satisfactory to whatever goals you want to achieve in life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So we're just gonna go straight into it. First off, what is a project manager?
Yeah, so a project manager is pretty much a person who's responsible for organizing a group of people, organizing a specific project, specific software, really just depending on where you are within an organization. This person is responsible for just ensuring that they're um, doing acts of servant leadership, leading a team into successful delivery of a specific thing. And I'm going to say thing a lot because, of course, there's so many projects out there, whether it's IT related, non-IT related, but you're pretty much responsible for just organization. So to be a project manager, you have to be self-organized, but then also have the ability to manage and organize a group, an entity, a software, a system, etc.
Oh, that's amazing. So when you're working as a project manager, sometimes do you got to kind of like say, for example, you're leading them to a project, but sometimes you got to think about the future tense of things, right?
Yes.
So you always have to keep that in mind also.
Always got to keep that in mind. And most projects are going to come with project plans, which is pretty much that futuristic idea that you're referring to. And it's pretty much your timeline in which a project is going to go through specific milestones, budgets, and so on and so forth, and resources. And so when you want to think about the future, you use that as like your playbook in order for you to be successful in the outcome or overall delivery of that specific project or thing, like I mentioned before.
Now I understand. So like, how does that differ in the tech space? Are you leading like projects to build things or adapt software? Like, can you kind of break that down to me?
Yeah, so in the tech space, it really just depends on where the organization that you're working for is coming from, right? If a system already exists, if a software already exists, if a technology already exists, then it's mainly just obtaining and maintaining um, that specific system, but sometimes you could be creating something new that doesn't already exist. And so when you're in that space, there's a lot more energy and effort that's going to take place in that space versus something where a system already exists. The system already exists. There's already things that are set in place that doesn't need to be started from scratch. And so, like I said, it really just depends on where you are and what company you're working for. And I've been in different spaces where there's a new system that needs to be created, and then there's a system that already exists, and you're just maintaining it and throughout. So I think about, like, when I give an example of this, I think about like people who have iPhones. Every year you can expect a new iOS to come out. That's a system that's been in place for forever since iPhones existed. And so if you were to work with the team responsible for a new iOS system coming out, you're more likely already going to be somewhere where a system exists. But if it's a thing that doesn't exist yet, you're going to be starting from scratch, utilizing the software development lifecycle to its fullest because you're going to be in that adaptive phase for quite a long time, trying to build and develop what that might look like.
Okay, so I understand. It's a lot going on with project management.
A lot, yes.
But how did you get into it? Kind of give honestly kind of a brief story of how did you adapt into it?
Yeah, so I started off as a chemist.
Like chemist.
Yes, in school, I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, I wanna go into chemistry, potentially become a pharmacist, and just make big money because I'm African."
The African. That's how I
Africans, they want their kids to become doctors, like, they don't care what type of doctor it is, just have the doctor in front of your name, so I'm like, "Hey, I like chemistry, so I think this could be the thing for me." And then as I went through college, I realized fairly quickly that, this is not necessarily the path that I wanna go into, it's more of, like, satisfactoring my parents, my culture, my environment, and so I'm like, "You know what? Let me try to do something else that might bring a little bit more joy into my life because you should like what you do, right? Because this is going to be your career from start to finish. So I ended up going to political science because I was like, oh, I can go and work at
oh,
an
political.
embassy for my country. So I did 2 years in chemistry because all you need is 2 years in order to qualify for pharmacy school. And I scrapped that. And then I was like, okay, let me do political science. Did that, thought I was going to go work for the government and do wonderful things for my country. That didn't happen. But I ended up getting a little office manager job.
Mhm.
And the office manager job was just like project management, project coordination. And it kind of like transitioned. And because I was the only person in that role, it kind of gave me the opportunity to build and reshape what that role will look like. And naturally, I ended up being like this organization's PM, and then, like, when I grew in this space, it pretty much put me in a position to create this role that never existed. And then from there, I ended up getting certified in my project management professional certification through the PMI, and then also got myself an Agile certification. Actually, a couple now, so Safe, Scrum, and then I'm trying to become a little bit of like an Agile coach and have that official certification as well. So just growing in a space where something didn't exist and I made it my own. And then I just ended up getting more direct roles at, like you said, Fortune 500 companies. And then my 12-year experience grew and expanded from there.
Yeah, you killing it out here. And it seems like throughout your journey, I'm Nigerian, so Africans is either doctor, lawyer. You went from this something maybe you didn't want to do. I mean, you kind of you just wanted to kind of stop there, switch to something, and then you finally got into the role that you work. In. So would it be safe to say you didn't think it was always going to be in your future? It just kind of just landed there.
It just landed on my lap. Yeah, it just happened. And then I also tell people, I feel like our lives is project management naturally. Like we always have something that we want to do for ourselves, whether it's a birthday or a trip or a move. Cause I moved here from Massachusetts and that took a lot of coordination. I didn't just get up and say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to move to Maryland. It took some time, it took some preparation, it took some steps towards getting myself ready for I guess in this space would be the deployment of a project, the actual move itself. And so it took some time, and I just feel like a lot of people can relate to that, like our lives every single day, just waking up, getting ready for work, that takes a lot of coordination, a lot of planning, a lot of day-to-day action oriented things that you need to do in order to make your day happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. Like, so like when a lot of people talk about PMP or becoming a project manager, even from our perspective, like, so when you first got into it, you just use a lot of the skills you already have. You know, you and shout out, shout out to you do event planning, you do a lot of things. Can you explain like how your day-to-day life can help shape your and get experience for those roles?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I do event planning, and I feel like I'm killing it in that space because of my role as a PM, right? You have to be self-organized, like I mentioned before, right? You can't say, "Hey, I want to be a project manager," and not have the ability to manage yourself. Once you've mastered the art of managing your day to day and yourself, you'll be able to coordinate and put together a team or a thing. Like I said, I'm saying thing because this could be a broad statement, but a thing that's important to you or important to a group of people. And so I think for me, my day to day is just sometimes by the books, and it works in a way where project management, when you look at the software development life cycle, in order for you to move from one phase of the SDLC to the next, you have to complete all of the things that you needed to do in one phase to the next phase. There's no, oh, let me go back and rework something. So you got to make sure that everything is clean, crisp, and good to go in order for you to process to the next phase. And so I feel like for me, that's how I am. And my friends would say, like when I was planning my wedding, that I was like, here's my game plan. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's your portion in the work, and this is what we're gonna do to be successful in getting to the wedding or anybody's event. Right, making sure that we hit all these milestones before the day of your event, which I would consider that deployment if you were talking about.
And I love it. We're gonna get into the deployment and everything a little later,
Yeah.
but how would that stuff translate to your resume? What would you put on your resume? Say, hey, you do projects on your own, or hey, you do events, maybe even at your church. How would you put that on your resume to get a job in that space?
I think for me, it would be about doing your research, first of all, on the JD that you're currently looking at, see what type of keywords that they're looking for. And on my resume, I do have a section where I name it like extracurricular activities, right? Where I'm able to let the organization know that outside of a professional life and my personal life, which is event planning, that I have a record keeping of being successful in a space where one shows that I'm human, right? Not everything is always about your professional life. They want to see that outside of work, you live, breathe, and do what you're practicing in a professional space. But then you're also having fun with it. Because I also think that in order for you to be successful in this space, it needs to be something that you can resonate with even outside of work. And like I said, naturally, even if we don't think about it, project management is something that we've all done. And so it just makes me seem a lot more relatable. And on my resume, it makes me sound more human. And I say that in the most respectful way because sometimes being in our fields, like we get so used to doing the same thing every single day that we could become robotic. And so to for recruiters and interviewers to hear that, not only are you passionate about this in a professional space, you're passionate about it outside of it, it makes them feel good enough knowing that, hey, if this person is hired, that we're going to be in good hands.
I know, I love that. And like you said, like even with me, like I do podcasts, and it takes to coordinate you to get here,
Yep.
to coordinate everything, the cameras, everything, editing. Hey, that's resume experiments right there.
Exactly. And like I said, just reading that job description and making sure that you have all the keywords necessary in a space where it's like, okay, this is my time to shine. And because it's my day to day, I have the right to control the narrative versus um your professional work experience. You would have to say, hey, I did this for this project. There's really no wiggle room for you to like tweak it up and make it personalized. So when you do have that extracurricular space on your resume, you can be a little bit flexible based off of what you're reading on a JD.
No, most definitely. Also, so you kind of mentioned like PNP and agile certs. Are those the basic certs to get into the field, or what? Can you explain like what certifications, what they are?
Yeah, so the project management professional certification is like one of the I would say is like the starter project management related cert. There's a lot out there, but if you're looking to get started, that would be the one that I would at least recommend because it's pretty straightforward. I got mine through the PMI Project Management Institution, and that's highly recognized across the board with a lot of organizations. And so they also have like an online course, it's self-paced, and so you can go in there, fill out the application, get approved, pay your fees, and then it will give you courses for you to learn just basic 101 about project management. And then from there, you take their certification and then put it on your resume and utilize it for getting yourself that opportunity. But like I said, the PMP itself through the PMI, that is like starter level. I want to get into project management. I want something under my belt. That's the cert to go into. And then in our world, if you're familiar with Agile,
Yeah.
a lot of people or organizations are trying to also adapt to certain pieces of Agile in the PM space. And so it's nice to have a Scrum Master certification, a SAFe certification, um, there's other certifications that the acronyms are like leaving my mind right now, but that also helps to make you a little bit more diversified from like the traditional PM space to okay, I have waterfall experience to also agile to also a little bit of hybrid. And so if you're looking to get your certification and you're looking to expand, I think those are the top 2 to look into, and then, of course, let your career path guide you into the next step. So I'm also I do PM in, cybersecurity, so I'm looking to get my C-risk certification to really help, hone in on that, like, experience as well, just to show the diversity that I'm technical, non-technical, and I can give you a little bit of everything, depending on where I end up.
Because any employers of her, she's fully qualified. She
Yes,
she
fully
knows she
qualified.
knows she does. So with the PMP, okay, I know you need like 10,000 hours or something to get that. Like, how do you get that? Like,
So the application that I was referring to, you get it through like your educational experience. You could utilize your course hours for that as well. And it takes a lot of work to go back into your previous course history. You might even have to call up your university
she
and be
call
like,
everybody.
"Hey, can you give me my transcript and list of classes that I took?" And get those numbers and put it into your application. You can also use volunteer opportunities, or if you're like me and you have your own personal business, like event planning, you can also use that as your hours. And then even if you work in the space already,
Mhm.
you can also say, "Hey, for 3 years, 5 years, I've worked in this space," and give them a brief description of, like, what you do as a PM. And I put it in quotes too because, like I said, your role doesn't directly need to say project manager, just what you do on a daily day-to-day basis can relate to the project management field, and that's how you can, put in your 10 hours or 12,000 hours. Yeah,
Dang. Phew.
10,000. That's
Mm,
full, yeah. That's how
mm.
you can put in those hours, but, I mean, like I said, if you really just take a step back and look into your day-to-day, it's easily manageable. You won't even realize, like, "Hey, I have done about 10K plus hours in this space." And then to upkeep and maintain the certification, you renew it every 3 years, but you have to obtain PDU points, and that's through, like, presentations. Even this would be considered, a qualification
Oh, it
for
is. Okay.
PDU. You need at least 60. So I would go into the PMI and say, "Hey, I did this podcast. It was about an hour, and so an hour equals 1 point." So
Oh, really?
and you submit it, someone reviews it, approves it, and then once you have 60, you're eligible to renew, just by paying a renewal fee. But if you let your PMP, um, go bad, pretty much you have to retake the test all over again, and that's too much of a headache.
Yeah, well, Darius, like, listen, man, I need some referral, going forward.
Yeah.
So I need
Yeah.
these hours because I'm looking at that 10 hours. I gotta get it somehow. So
Yeah, this could qualify for it, right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
So I got you. So you need your PMP. You kind of broke me. You can use any experience to kind of get in this field that relates to project, even at church.
Mm.
And I love that you're explaining this. Okay, so when you're a project manager, how much money can you make? I have to ask.
Whew.
I gotta get to use
Yeah,
some.
yeah, yeah. I know. I honestly, I'm sure the viewers want to hear this. I'm gonna give a range because I just feel like it really just depends on your location, the type of role that you're in. We're talking about project management as a broad role, but I think in the IT space, that's where you see a lot of the big bucks. And I would say even as entry level, you can start off making low 100K.
No, okay, that could change somebody's life.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. That's a really great income to start off in. And I've seen, especially in this area, roles where they're offering in the twos, 200Ks.
That's a lot of money. 200K,
Definitely.
man. Listen, you can get a house to take care of your
Yeah.
family. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah. And I would say the median, at least the median would be like 150.
Okay,
So
okay.
there's possibility for you to make that. But I just want to emphasize heavily on location matters, right? There's a lot of PM related work here in the DMV, so you could see those numbers. But if you're somewhere that's more quiet, rural, um, those numbers might be a little bit lower, but it's still going to be a decent wage. And it's something that, like I said, if it's fulfilling, it's fun. Your day to day, it's not the same. So you have opportunities to enjoy what you do and make pretty good money.
Yeah. So like say if you just new starting off, are you gonna make like 70K or is that kind of like the lowest or
I haven't seen 70K. When I started, I would say I'm not going to give exact numbers,
you
but
know,
when I started, obviously it was like 10, 12 years ago, I would say about 90. So I think now that times have changed, someone starting could see like 120, um, depending on where they are. But yeah, let's just say just based off of location, let's say starting anywhere between 95 to 120, and then experience will definitely boost how much you make moving forward.
so audience, just make sure you pay attention. It depends on region, but just make sure you ask for what you can get. Don't try to undersell yourself. So just keep in mind those are some of the numbers, and they're not hard numbers. Just depends on your region.
Yeah, and I mean, and the good news is that most companies are having pay transparency nowadays. So you'll see, especially my organization, they always put the pay on their JDs just to be transparent. And so it gives you that opportunity to see, whoa, okay, this entry level position is going to start me off at least at minimum 100 and something K. And then obviously, depending on your worth, depending on your years of experience, your degrees, your certifications, you can advocate for more because it gives a range. And so you know they have it and you can just advocate as much as you feel like.
Yeah. So okay, we got it. So you need the PMP. You can get all that. You need the experience. We got the experience part. So we're building it. We're building it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so with PMP, like the one we're talking about, you do a lot of IT work, cybersecurity work. So it's a good way to transition to the cybersecurity space, right?
Yes.
So you kind of like dealing like with in the tech space, you're dealing with projects. You got to understand risks, the technologies, and things like that, right? Okay. So kind of tell me more about like being a project manager in a cybersecurity or tech space. Like, what is the day to day like?
I would say the day to day differs, but if I could sum it up maybe on a weekly basis, um, you would start off with like some sort of daily huddle. In the agile space, they call this daily stand up. It's a time dedicated for your team to give brief updates on what they worked on yesterday, what they plan on working on today, and if there's any bottlenecks, aka impediments, blockers, that is stopping an individual from getting their tasks completed. And as your PM, I would listen in to see how severe are those impediments? Is it something that we need to discuss right at this moment? Is it something that we need to come up with a plan for so that way we can mitigate any type of risk that could come of it in the future? And so on and so forth. And then just also being able to just hear where people are within their their part of the work, because you're going to get higher ups coming to you saying, hey, where are me in such and such, and you should utilize the information that you get from these calls to provide them with that information. Once those meetings complete, you find yourselves in and out of calls related to the project. Sometimes you might be the one facilitating those meetings. Sometimes it might be someone else who might not even say a word, or you might add your contribution based off of experiences or based off of the knowledge that you know thus far in that specific meeting. If you are lucky, like I am, and you have a community of practice for a bunch of PMs that work within your department, you'll have weekly calls with these individuals. And it's usually a call where you guys can come together and work on problems that you're currently facing, talk about anything, or even learn a little bit more about the ever changing world of waterfall, agile, and project management, and try to apply it with your teams as best as possible. Um, and then your day to days is just all about communication, communication, communication. You're going to find yourselves in a bunch of Slack channels, or if you're on Teams, NS Team channels, and just hearing people go or reading people go back and forth about where they are with it specific uh, projects. So there's just a lot that can happen, but I would say that's your day to day. And then as project managers, we're also responsible for creating documentation, organizing that documentation, ensuring that it's placed places where it's easily accessible for your team or stakeholders. So yeah, there's a lot that can happen, but it's all about communication, organization, meetings, back and forths, and you just need to stay at the top of things with everything that's happening. And so you might come up with your own system on how to keep up with that, but it really just depends on who you are, how you manage yourself before you are able to manage other people.
Yeah, you gotta be able to manage yourself before you can manage other people. That's the hardest part, you know. Can you kind of sort of audience for myself? Can you kind of explain like the agile waterfall moment, just a little bit?
Yes, I talked a little bit about the software development lifecycle, which starts with like the requirement analysis phase. Then it goes into the design, then it goes live into production, it gets tested, and then deployment and maintenance stage. And so within project management, which project managers, if you're doing more traditional PM, you'll be under the waterfall methodology. If you're doing like Scrum project management, you'll be under Agile. And so pretty much in this space, you're still doing the SDLC, but the way you go about it is a lot different. Like Agile has a little bit more flexibility in the SDLC. Like you're able to move from one phase in the SDLC and be able to go backwards if an impediment happens. You're able to fail fast but recover faster by going backwards and reworking some of your original topics, original conversations, etc. Versus waterfall, where you're following a plan, there's contracts and negotiations that you need to abide by, and there's certain milestones that you have to achieve before moving on to the next step. So there's not a lot of flexibility in the waterfall space once a project jump starts, but there's flexibility in Agile. But in a way, it's still following the same SDLC lifecycle. It's just one is more flexible and one's not. And when people ask which one is better, I just pretty much tell them like, hey, it really just depends on the organization. If the organization allows flexibility, that you should consider being Agile. If it doesn't allow flexibility and you have to follow contracts and negotiations, then they should be more waterfall based. But if there's a little bit of both, then they can find a way to be hybrid, which is being waterfall, but taking elements of Agile and putting it into your day to day, or being Agile and taking elements of waterfall and putting it into your day to day. But what does that look like? It really just depends on where you end up.
Okay, so what do you think is better? I think agile is better than waterfall. What do you think about it?
Since I'm so diverse, like I leave it to the companies. It really just depends on what it is that they're trying to accomplish on a company wide scale. Like I said, if you have that flexibility within your project, you can work backwards, or you might have had an idea 5 months ago and then something has changed, like AI is advancing, right? If something within AI technology has advanced and it wasn't something you were thinking about 5 months prior, in Agile, you had that flexibility to go back and adapt. But then within project management, it's like we've already came up with a game plan and it's kind of too late to tailor it and switch it up. So we're going to continue delivering on this project plan. So it really just depends. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but it really just depends on where that company is in real time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so you talked about all this. Also, to talking about, I want to ask you, like, sometimes when you're dealing with people, right, you have to do different deliverables, and again, you can't get the thing done. What happens if somebody's slacking on something? How do you handle that?
Great question. Like I mentioned before, like every single day there's some sort of daily huddle, or like I said, in the agile world is like daily stand up. And so in those calls, hopefully with transparency within the team, someone will be like, hey, I'm having an impediment. I need help here, right? That help could be the Slack that you're referring to. But a good PM in this space would inspect the work as well. There's going to be technologies and tools that you can utilize to help track where a project is or a specific task. I think a good tool is Jira,
And
right?
the Jira's a popular one.
Jira is very popular. You have your user stories that pretty much detail and outline where a person is within their project. You can see the workflow. They should be leaving comments in there, most up to date comments. And as a PM, at least for me, I find times within the days or certain windows to go and upkeep and manage those updates to see if someone is slacking. So if I can be ahead of the game and find that impediment and see a ticket that was supposed to be closed out yesterday still open, I'm able to be proactive, reach out to the person responsible for that work and start that conversation. And hopefully they'll be able to tell me where they are. But obviously if I have no idea where they are and they're unable to articulate their progress, then I will have to troubleshoot to the next person to try to figure out why this person is behind. But off of transparency, and hopefully, in my case, this team member or team members are as proactive and as transparent. They'll be able to articulate where that impediment is, and then I'll be able to come up with a game plan on how to support them and removing it so they can move forward in progressing.
So sometimes with project managers and sometimes like you're doing a job and they probably want it done quicker but don't understand sometimes. Sometimes like they'll just act and just get somebody, hey, go help out this person, that. Sometimes they don't have conversations with the what do you think that's the issue with that? Why is that?
I think realistically, a lot of transparency is missing from the conversations that we do have. A lot of our higher ups, unfortunately, don't provide us with a space to be realistic in expectations. So some people are taking on more than they can handle, and then it's putting them in deep water or fire. And they're the people who are actually doing the work, the engineers, the coders, the QAs. They're the ones actually building out the code and the QAs are testing it. And during these phases, things are happening that should be articulated to our higher ups, letting them know that, hey, here's this thing that's not working because we've done it. Here's our experience. Here's the example. Um, and realistically, it may not be able to happen, or we might need more time. And sometimes our higher ups are not listening to that. So they feel like, okay, maybe we don't need more time. We just need more resources. And even when those resources show up, they're getting that same message and they're ignoring it. So I think that if our higher ups or stakeholders in this case could be or put themselves in the shoe of the people actually putting the software together, it would help them understand that, hey, we need to listen to our folks. So that way, not only are we delivering software to our end user group that's going to be efficient, that we're doing it in a way where we're not breaking things and having to spend more money or more resources to get that done. But it really all stems with communication and everybody working together. But in this space, for some reason, people don't want to communicate because they don't want to either feel like they're not connecting or they don't understand exactly what's happening. But I think if everyone can contribute and be transparent, a lot the way, it can really help reduce some of that miscommunication.
Yeah, and I understand, like, from y'all perspective, y'all just trying to get it done. So y'all don't want to hear certain things because in those meetings that we don't know about, somebody could be literally screaming at you about something and we don't know what's going on. So
Yeah.
you just like, hey man, like we mess with you, but hey, what's going on?
And I think that's what makes a good PM, right? If you can be transparent and letting your team know what's happening outside of our little bubble. When you can't articulate that, then you get to the point where the engineers are like, whoa, we're the ones putting in the work. You're just telling us what to do, or this other person's telling us what to do. And then they start to be a little bit resistant when it comes to the things that you're trying to implement to help them be better. So I think just working with your team and utilizing the art of transparency. I'm going to repeat that. So the life of me, the depth of me, um, and just say utilizing transparency will take you a long way and help you build positive and open for relationships with your team members. Because if they don't trust you and they're always like, oh, here she is again, or here he is again, or here they are again, that they're definitely going to ignore your requests and never understand exactly where you're coming from. And even vice versa, you won't understand where they're coming from as well.
So it's about communication.
Communication and transparency.
Okay. Say it's like say you're a PM and you lost transparency or something happened, y'all lost a little bit of trust. Is there any way to build that back up or
I think there is. There's always ways to build it up. I try to utilize like one-on-one conversations with individuals to really just help understand where they are within their project. If they want to open up, maybe where they are within their professional career, because there's always something happening. People have lives outside of work. And so if you can have one-on-one conversations to let this person know that, hey, this is me time. Like, let's talk about exactly what's happening within our space. It can eventually, hopefully, lead to, you don't always have to have this like personal relationship with this individual, but I think just giving them that safe space and having these one-on-one conversations outside of the rest of the team, outside of higher ups, can help you just pretty much figure things out with them. It's not a perfect system, but I think making people feel like they're heard definitely gets you a long way.
yeah, because life happens. Sometimes at the end of the day, life happens. Somebody to be going through a death in a family. And again, in a business, people really don't care.
Yeah.
But, it's good just to know that see that you're being heard at least.
Yes.
So, boys, I did have a question. So, like, say we were doing a project, right? Working on software, implementing something. Say if it doesn't go, the higher up say you got to get about done this time. It doesn't go, but you told them that ahead of time. What are some of the consequences in that sense of being a project manager?
Consequences as if within us.
Yeah, we're within y'all. Like, can y'all get in, like, how did y'all get in trouble? If y'all managing a team, like,
Yeah. So you can get in trouble if there's not proper documentation. Like if I've articulated that, hey, something isn't going well, but I don't have anything to back up, obviously people are gonna be like, well, you're just talking. But if you are a good project manager and you do have metrics, you do have data, you do have specific um examples of why something doesn't go well, I think higher ups or stakeholders, they're a little bit more understanding, but you can't just say like, "Hey, something's gonna go wrong because of word of mouth." It has to have some sort of evidence or metrics behind it. And I think you get a different type of protection when you have backup or resources to provide versus just saying it and then you had nothing. So I think documentation is key as much as possible. Even something as simple as documenting the day, the time, the meeting in which you told them that this is not going to go well and they ignored you. I think that goes a long way as well. And then hopefully you'll have data also to back up your reasonings. And if you do, it should protect you. Keyword should, but it should protect you versus someone who's not documenting, managing well, communicating well. People are just going to look at you and put all the blame on you and your team. So I think if you can, it took me a few years into my role to learn that documentation for your own protection is very important Just make sure you know as much things as possible. And during your one-on-one meetings with your supervisor, make sure that these concerns have been brought up. So that way it's not new information for when ish hits the roof months later. So yeah, I'll just say documentation and evidence and metrics to back up your statements.
Yeah, that's what I do. Like as an ISO in the GRC space, I make sure, and I tell anybody that's even new to the field, make sure you email, make sure it's documented, because if it's not documented, then the manager gonna come to you like, "Why is it not done?" Or Jira's good, and that's why I understand. I'm no more understanding now. My project manager, just make sure it's documented in Jira. That's all he keeps saying. Or make sure you update the Kanban. That's all he keeps saying, because at least it's documented. So if anybody asks any questions, it's nothing they can say. So yeah, I agree with 100% on that. Okay, so what are some other project manager tools that people can use?
MS projects, ADOs, more efficient for DevOps work. Some people have like in-house systems. Like I worked for a university that had its own like system called Advance, and then they transitioned into Tableau to document a lot of their day to day. So it really just depends. But I think no matter what project management tooling that you use, the purpose is always going to be the same, right? You should be able to create tasks. You should be able to have some sort of workflow to show where the person who owns the work currently stands within the work, right? The transition, the flow is usually like a backlog, ready, in progress, testing, ready for acceptance, and then done, right? Those are like the top priorities. But depending on where you are, you can adjust as you see fit. But as long as you have a tooling system that can help you track those simple things, you should be golden. But the top tooling right now, I feel like even if you're not a Scrum Master, most people are utilizing Agile. And we're seeing it even in cyber, right? I didn't think I was going to end up in cybersecurity and then see that they were interested in documenting their progress in Jira. So
They want to know everything. So trust me, we've been using it more and more lately.
yeah.
In the past, I didn't really use it as much, but now it's kind of become the norm. I personally don't really like Jira like that.
Auto boot out.
Yeah, I think there can be, in especially the compliance space, I think there could be things that are more smooth to document things, but yeah, I ain't doing it. I ain't built anything yet, so I can't complain too much.
And I would say the tool too also like it creates a little bit of bottleneck because it's not automated. And a lot of people are looking for automation. And so it's like, but I don't believe in automation. This is just me. I'm sorry if you do, but automation still requires some level of data input. Like someone has to put the data somewhere in order for the work to automate. And so if you're trying to avoid putting in data or updating something, I think automation doesn't typically work. Like the metrics in Jira, in order for data like velocity reports to generate, you have to put in the work somewhere, or else Jira's not going to know that your team is burning down the work in a efficient manner. So yeah.
What are some ways that you can kind of stand out in this role, like to become like a standout and make sure you always have a job?
Yeah. I think standing out, you have to be personable. Like I said, I think someone who really enjoys doing this work and maybe find ways to do it outside of their professional space will find that they will shine a lot more. You have to care, right? Some people go into it just simply for the money. They do their JD and go about their day. But if you're going a little bit above and beyond, like I said, the one-on-one meetings with your team members, trying to get to the core root of what's happening, whether it's personal or work related, that really helps. And that person is definitely going to shout you out. Like at my current organization, we have work recognition. And every time someone does something above and beyond for another individual, that individual go in there on Slack and announce to the entire department that, hey, this person went above and beyond. They did this. They helped me with that. And they get recognized by it. And people tend to know you a lot better, especially when you're working in a big department like my space, where it's like, if you don't have that standout moment, only your team and department well, we have towers. Only your tower will know you, but everybody else within the department would be like, who is that? Oh, they've been here for 5 years? Oh, I thought they started last month. Type of scenario, but standing out just means going above and beyond and actually getting to know your folks. And I think project management also should be fun. Go if you have longer meetings, try to do icebreakers, get people in a better mood before getting to the nitty gritty of things. Um, and being part of office hours, if possible, or happy hours, because companies tend to do that. So make yourself available if you can, and getting to know your team in that space, and you should be fine.
Yeah, because like even in sports, like project manager is like quarterback. You gotta know your whole line, man. You gotta know your whole team, because they're not gonna want to protect you unless they know what they're protecting.
Exactly.
So like, why are we protecting you? We don't know who you are. You're just a quarterback,
Right.
So
Here.
I like your analogy on that. Also, too, I know we touched on this organization. Like to be a project manager, you gotta be organized yourself. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I'll explain that. Like right now, we mentioned that I just had a baby 3 months ago. So thank you, thank you. And so like now that is a whole level of organization that I didn't have prior. Because now, I mean, I was always on a schedule, but now I have to build in a schedule that involves someone else's day to day. They're depending on me. And so everything that I do, I need to do it at least 30 minutes earlier or an hour earlier. Or our work is always learning through experiences. So if I were to, like yesterday, I had a birthday party to attend for a 1 year old and I brought the baby. And it was the first birthday he's ever been invited to. And the party started at 4. So that means I had to get ready at 2. And myself and the baby. And then I realized that time was against me. So now I know that if I'm going to the next birthday party, I now have to start getting ready at 1:30 and adjusting my day to fit that new schedule. But organization within yourself just really means like whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish for that day, that week, that month, for the next year. You write down a list of to-dos, try to pinpoint 1 or 2 things that you can do for the day, for the week, for the month, etc., and try to accomplish those goals. Take life in bite-sized pieces in order for you to reduce the amount of work that you need to do to get to your end goal. And usually when I talk about end goals in your personal life, I'm talking about that deployments phase of a project, right? And so just making sure that you're keeping yourself aligned, holding yourself accountable, and then documenting once again where you are within yourself in your day, etc. So
Yeah, once I get to that point, because sometimes when you and me, I'd be like, doing that for work, I'll be like, well, I can just take care of this anytime. But I'm learning now, just take care of it now so you don't have to worry about it later.
exactly.
So you can just knock it out. Like, what's the point of this? Is like a simple task. Like, why am I taking 3 hours to do? Like, sometimes I'll be having that issue. I'm like, well, I could just take care of it anytime, and then you keep pushing it back. So I like how you say, like, with your child, like, you have to literally, at 1 o'clock, you got to get ready.
Yeah. Yeah, it starts with learning through experiences. You might start off thinking you got it, but then the next time the same scenario pops up, make sure that you remember what happened last time and adjust your time to be on time.
And then you got a husband, too, so you got to make sure you're ready, too.
Yeah, B Clancy's he gets ready fast, but I guess it takes a lot longer than I do.
I think that's us guys. We'd be like, well, if you taking 3 hours, well, I could just put on a shirt, some pants, and keep it pushing.
Yeah.
But then we end up taking sometimes 30 minutes to an hour or so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're admitting that. But not me.
Oh, so Diamond, we're getting close to the end. Where can our audience find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, diamond_dashiki. That is diamond_DASHIKI. Or you can find me on LinkedIn under Diamond Tarwoe. That's TARWOE. Eventually that will change. I need to change it to my marital last name. But as of now, my maiden name, that's where you can find me. You can find me on Facebook too, but I'm not on there. But if you feel like that's your go-to place, I'll eventually respond to your friend request. But Instagram and LinkedIn, I'm usually pretty active. Just especially LinkedIn, I'm just reading people's posts and seeing where the job market currently stands or what new innovation someone is working on in the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, and then also too, where about your event business? Where can they find like?
Yeah, so my event planning business is called YD Bridal Blux, and that's also our tagging on Instagram. That's YD, my business partner. Her name was Yetunde, so her initial, my initial, Bridal Lux, and that's about it. You can also email us at ydbridallux@gmail. And if you're looking for any event planning needs, we'll set up a consultation and see where we can insert ourselves. And then we also do clothing, custom clothing as well. We do partnerships in Nigeria to help with managing that stuff because it's a lot. um, but yeah, you can find us on Instagram, and we have a team that's willing to respond to your needs.
Yeah, check out Diamond and check out our event plan and folder business. I personally been to their events. They're amazing events, like really amazing events. Like, so just make sure you check them out. Like seriously, like I ain't gonna, it fire. I felt like I had to dress up a little extra, you know. I'm like, what's going on here? Okay, so Diamond, again, to a lot of dark times in tech. We don't know what's going to happen. What is one thing you want to leave the audience with to keep them encouraged and keep them motivated? Be a quote, statement, anything.
I would leave a little bit of a statement. I think that even with these tough times, I think you should keep going, keep pushing, try to invest in yourself as much as you can. Investing means like, yes, even though there's a lot of layoffs happening and you're still thinking about becoming a project manager, whether it's a scrum master, etc., you should continue pushing forward and getting yourself into that space. Invest in yourself no matter what. I think we're just going through a temporary time. I tell people to think about like our 2008 situation, and we recovered from that. And so I do believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Um, and so if you're looking to get into this space, looking to get into this field, and you're feeling discouraged, continue pushing forward. Good news is you're not spending 50,000 plus on a college degree. It's just 500, maybe tops 2K. So if all else fails, and I'm putting that in quotes because you shouldn't let it fail, right? Failure really starts within. Um, but if all else fails, at least you didn't spend grands on this. But continue to just push forward and believe in yourself and work hard for it. And I promise you, if you don't give up, it will definitely be enjoyable at the end of it.
None that you said it. Just don't give up. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll get an opportunity. It might take some time. For myself, it took 2 years. So you're gonna get an opportunity. Just don't give up. It could take 2-3 years, but eventually you're gonna get in. So
Yep.
remember, and thank you, Diamond, for coming on this Saturday for the bypass.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Thank you.
So everybody, if you're watching, remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below if you have any comments or concerns or any opinions. Remember to share the video, and then also check out rnfacademy.io if you're trying to learn about compliance in the government space. So remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.